Welcome to Bears on Tap, hosted by Quinten Krzysko, Sonny Verma, and the one and only Ron Luce. Bringing you all the news, analysis, and opinions on the charter franchise, Chicago Bears.
Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. Chicago Bears football was fun today as they dismantled the Dallas Cowboys at Soldier Field 31-14. Caleb Williams threw 4 touchdown passes. The Bears defense generated 4 takeaways. And Sonny, where has this team been?
You mean my entire life?
Yeah.
I mean, this is, we're going to talk a lot today, I'm sure, about what we saw and, Ben Johnson and whatnot. But I just want to say, this is the game that we'd been waiting for since Ben Johnson was hired. All that positive energy coming into the season. And then we had those first 2 games. The way the Bears played today on that field is what we envisioned, I feel like, the minute he was hired. And, just the mood of today's episode, even before we started recording between you and I, is 100-fold better than it was last week and the week before, let's be honest. And you know what, Q, I don't know about you, but I prefer feeling this way.
I mean, I think we all should prefer feeling this way. And it's a rare feeling for us the last few years. It's been a tough go. Hopefully it doesn't remain a tough go and this isn't an anomaly. I don't think it will be. I'm not, getting my expectations sky high, like they're going to go win the division now, make the playoffs. But
I'm close.
My whole thing coming into this year, right, was I want December games to matter because it's been so long since December games have mattered for the Bears. I think 2020 was the last time a December game mattered when they made the playoffs in the COVID year. And even that, they lost those games. They just backed into the playoffs. So I want meaningful December football because I think that's where you can really judge a football team and where it's going in the future. And, today felt like a step towards that direction of where we can actually be sitting here and feel good about the direction of this team.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think today you kind of saw a glimpse of what the future Bears team is going to look like. You saw Caleb not just play, a normal game. He played very well today, and he spread the ball around to a lot of our young players today. Our, Luther Burden had his coming out party. Colson Loveland had a couple catches earlier today. It was just, and then you saw Ben Johnson, dip his hand into his little bag finally, which is kind of what you and I were clamoring for last episode at the post game after the Lions game. You kind of saw a different style of offense. You saw motions, you saw trickery, and that's what had you so excited to begin with when you hired Ben Johnson. And that combined with just arguably Caleb's best game as a pro today, connecting with Odunze, connecting with Luther Burden. Again, you kind of caught a glimpse of what the Chicago Bears future is going to look like. And I like it.
It's exciting, man. And I'll tell you, one of the things that really stands out to me, and this is something that in Ben's post game, he mentioned that the 2-minute was a big thing for them this week. He mentioned 3 different things, right? He said, we've got some notes here: 3rd down, red zone, and 2-minute. So on 3rd down, I want to say they were 8 for 12, something like that. I got them right here. 8 for 14. Cowboys were 3 for 11. Red zone, the Bears were, I believe it's 2 for 3.
2 for 3.
Cowboys were 1 for 4. And then 2-minute, when I hear 2-minute, I just automatically expand it to middle 8. So what the middle 8 is, it's the final 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half. There's a ton of statistical backing. If you can win the middle 8, you will win a football game because that is where the biggest swings happen in a game. Today, the Bears won the middle 8 10-0. They, you start the final 4 minutes of the first half, they force a punt on the Cowboys, then they go score a touchdown, then they prevent the Cowboys from scoring again. Come out the second half, Cowboys have almost a 5-minute drive that ends in a punt. So you get that, and I guess technically within that 4 minutes, they Bears kicked a field goal at the start of the first half 4 minutes. But that middle 8 is so key to a game, and today they were able to dictate it and be able to take it the direction they needed to without any major gaffes. After, last week we saw them have a major gaffe in that section where they said that the Bears scored, gave the football back to Detroit. Detroit goes and gets 3 points in 20 seconds or 7 points in 20 seconds, whatever it was.
Yeah.
That type of stuff can be detrimental to a team, and they largely avoided it today, despite being down multiple players in their secondary. And, frankly, Darnell Wright sucked after his injury.
Yeah.
And I hope it's something that he can recover from, or they can do a better job of managing going to the next game. And that's not an insult on him. That's like, he should be condemned for battling through it. Yeah. But like, he was pretty incapable of playing at the level that we expect from Darnell Wright.
I didn't want to pass up what you were saying with Ben Johnson's postgame. I want to circle back on that anyway, so we might as well talk about it now. Isn't it just kind of nice that you had such an authoritative figure in that locker room after the game that all the players really seemed tuned into, that they were, kind of vibing off of his energy, a guy who really felt like he knew what he was talking about. He had targets coming into the game, and, he kept statistics, and they had a game plan. The game plan worked. The game plan was executed, and they won 31-14. For all the flaws that Eberflus did have, I always thought that even when the Chicago crowd was starting to turn on Eberflus in a positive way, saying, hey, fresh new haircut, this is our guy, et cetera, I always felt like he kind of was limited in, and I hate this word because I know there's no way to establish it, or there's no quantitative stat for it, but aura. There's a presence factor. And I think Ben Johnson showed today that he has that. And if nothing else, I think that's very important in a head coach. Just as important as the offensive tactics or defensive tactics and whatnot. You can lack the aura if you're the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. But I don't think you can lack that particular trait if you're the head coach. And I think right now, at least today, we saw a head coach that has that.
And it's something you can draw parallels to outside of football, right? Like, we both worked 9-to-5 jobs and been like, it's not the same, but there are elements that transfer there where, like, you've had a good manager who motivates you to do more, who rewards you in the right ways and makes you want to really invest in your job. And you've had bad managers who just kind of, let the day go by and like let things slide, and there's not as much accountability within your team, and that stuff that is the same across industries. I think it's just louder in football in my mind, and today I think we saw it in Ben Johnson in that post game in the locker room, a guy who holds his guys accountable, rewards his guys, and there's a lot of buy-in in that locker room. And that buy-in gets so much easier to nurture off of wins, right? Like, Ben Johnson called these guys out this week and called himself out. Said, we need to be practicing better. We're going to ride them all week. Like, this is going to be a tough week on them. And they came out with a win. So now the message is that worked.
Yeah.
We got to keep making that work. It's not that didn't work. It's a big turning point when you hit that point where the coach says something like that. If you don't win that game, it gets hard to continue that buy-in. So, like, that's to your point. I think that's something really good that we saw happen today, and that is it makes it a lot easier for this team to carry forward the vibes, the success, the aura that comes with it.
Exactly, because we were talking about it last week, right? So that's why I wanted to commend him on it this week. We know Ben Johnson's a really smart guy. We know he knows analytics, and he studied at the finest universities and whatnot. But what we talked about last week a little bit was it still takes something a little bit more to be a head coach in college football and absolutely in the NFL as well. And so for me, having kind of ranted about that last week, seeing what you just mentioned, Ben Johnson call out not just the players, but himself as well, and then seeing this as the result is just it's a positive spin on everything. And all of a sudden, it's not just a score, 31-14, that has me optimistic. Because, as Drew mentioned in the chat, yeah, the Cowboys aren't the best team. That's not the point. But it's just nice to, I said, my goal this season is to know that Ben Johnson is the right guy, and ideally with Caleb Williams as the quarterback who can win us the Super Bowl. Today, I think we saw a huge sign pointing in that direction.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a comment here from Scott saying 4 turnovers and 2 sacks. Where was this defense last week? I do think there's some game script that goes into that, and I do think that there's some, Bears get a lead, it becomes easier to be able to sit back in coverage and not worry as much about the run, which helps the defense a lot. Dak was a check down king today. It's not because he wants to check down all the time, because the Bears were able to consistently drop 7-8 in coverage and be able to just put that cap over the defense at the first down marker and be like, well, you can pass it underneath and we're going to trust our guys to tackle. And kudos to that. I don't want to take anything away from the defense there either, because the defense did have to get through a rough stretch to make that happen. And that is truly what I think the asset of a Dennis Allen defense is being able to say strategically, schematically, we can make stuff happen every here and there in spite of talent, but we can't do it all game, right? And that's where you need to, the offense needs to be capitalizing when the defense picks that moment. And you typically, I think in a Dennis Allen scheme, need a defensive back who's stepping up, and Tyrique Stevenson, it's like the Dumb and Dumber clip, right? Right when I think you can't do anything worse, you totally redeem yourself. Great game from him. Ron, how are you doing this fine evening?
Hey, gentlemen, I'm doing well. It has been, I'm trying to do the rough math here, roughly almost a complete 9 months since we have been on these airwaves talking about a Chicago Bears victory.
Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
So it feels pretty good, man. I'm in a good mood. That game was great. It was fun. The offense got shit done. The defense stepped up. You guys were just talking about the defense. How about Tremaine Edmonds having 2 interceptions today?
Yeah.
Plays happened when they needed it most. This Cowboys team, yes. Are they maybe not as good as they once were? Sure. Still a good football team, though, all things considered, right? This isn't a cheap victory. I don't think there is such thing as a cheap victory in the NFL. Holy shit, it feels good to have a Bears win on a Sunday, because you know what that means? Monday's going to be awesome. Yeah. And I'm here soaking it in, gentlemen, and it's great to be with you guys. I apologize for my tardiness.
Ron, to your downer point there, because the last win didn't matter, right? The Bears had that game didn't really impact anything.
But they beat the Packers.
They did. But the last time they won a game that mattered for them in the standings, 11 months and 1 week ago.
Jeez.
Or I'm sorry, 11 months and 3 weeks ago.
So almost a full year.
Yeah, no, 1 week. 1 week. Math is hard, guys. 11 months and 1 week, because 3 weeks less than a year. Yeah.
Unreal.
Q, I also wanted to piggyback on that point that you made, that you're right. It was our gameplay and the game script that let our defense be so effective today. But I think it all got kickstarted. We were 3 and out. We received the ball 3 and out, punted, and then Tyrique Stevenson makes that play on the first defensive time we had. That, to me, almost set the energy for the game. You heard the stadium audibly get louder. And so, while the other plays, happened once we were able to get a little bit more comfortable, Tyrique has gotten a lot of heat from Bears fans, and a lot of it is deserved. But today was simply one of those games where you just tip your cap to him. I genuinely think, I know we're going to talk about this stuff later, but, he kind of started everything when it came to this game. After that, you just felt good. You had the Luther Burden or the 65-yard throw happened shortly thereafter and whatnot. And it all started, I think, with that, because you get the ball first, you go 3 and out immediately, and it's just frustrating. Like it's just one of those where, are we going to do this again? And that's not what happened. Tyrique rips the ball off in one of the better defensive plays you're going to see all season long, not just on the Bears highlights, but in the NFL. That's going to be shown on SportsCenter. And, and then us to score right after that, you got to give credit to him.
I was going to say, and I think the most impressive thing, too, with the Stevenson turnover is that Dallas was moving the football, especially on the ground. Like Javonte Williams, every one of my fantasy team rosters was screaming in excitement watching him run down the field, although my own personal feelings were the opposite. But to see that, again, it's almost the timeliness of it, right? I think that makes it such an impactful play. I think if you're going to look at this game, like the flea flicker and the 2 picks from Edmonds and so many other great plays happened that you could point to and say, maybe that was the play of the game. I would argue the Tyrique Stevenson takeaway was the play of the game. Because as Sonny perfectly mentioned, it zapped the energy out of the Cowboys, at least temporarily. It flipped the momentum back to the Bears on their own turf. And that stadium was fully invested in the game the whole way then. And it is really an advantage at Soldier Field when you play there with the crowd noise. It is. Players have talked about it for decades, right? We've heard the stories from the greats of Brian Urlacher and so on and so forth. So I think for the timeliness of it, right, because Dallas was driving and could have gotten that first score in the game, for that to completely flip the script ultimately on the game, I think was what was most important about the timing of the takeaway.
It was huge. And for a guy who's been through so much negative in recent years, it's interesting because this is the player a lot of us hoped we would see in Dennis Allen's scheme, and we didn't see it at all the first 2 weeks, right? But like this week, it starts to give me some hope that, maybe there is more there with Tyrique than we've seen. I do need to see it again because I do think George Pickens is the ideal matchup for him among high-end wide receivers, being more of a large body bully ball style player than a speed player or technician. So I need to see Tyrique stack this into a good week of practice and another good game. But one thing that I'm curious about, I don't want to be a downer with this either for the defense, but you know me, when everything's bad, I'm gonna be like, everything is better than that. And when everything's good, I'm gonna be like, let's pump the brakes. Like, losing CeeDee Lamb was huge in this game for the Cowboys, and that had to flip their game plan on its head. And they had to scramble to find something new. I think the same thing, I don't remember if I mentioned this in the postgame show last week or not. To me, last week, the loss to the Lions and how bad Dennis Allen's defense was has an asterisk next to it because you lost Jalen Johnson in the first quarter. And that changes your entire defensive game plan. So I have to say the same thing for the Cowboys offense, right? Like, their game plan got flipped. The players still went out and did what they did, and they still, bullied the Cowboys all game. But, like, some of that has to be on the Cowboys coaching in my mind, too.
Most definitely, especially when you consider how important Javonte Williams was running the ball at will, especially early in this game. That's going to set up play action pass. That's going to set up players like CeeDee Lamb for big opportunities. When you lose a big-time playmaker like that, you do become a little more one-dimensional. Not that George Pickens can't take the top off or make big catches down the field, even though he had one tipped off his hands and right into the hands of Tremaine Edmonds, but that's neither here nor there. There is that less element now of, we're not as scared about the deep threat. We're not as scared about arguably one of the top 5 receivers in the NFL. So that definitely helps Dennis Allen. If anything, I think that allowed Dennis Allen maybe to bring more juice on pressure, right? Because there was, what's Jake Ferguson going to do to us down the field? What's George Pickens going to do to us down the field? Yes, Kevontae Turpin is still there, and we heard from, Brendan on our preview show and how much his speed can play a factor, but it really did feel like the Cowboys just all of a sudden were in a little bit of panic mode, dare I say, of like, well, shit, how do we generate offense? How do we push the ball down the field? How do we threaten this defense? And then when they were getting into those desperate situations, you saw Dennis Allen dial up the blitz, and that's where they were able to come through and really negate any momentum that the Cowboys tried to get going offensively.
And it's also just a sign of a good team or a team that's getting better. It's like there's a lot of teams out there, as you mentioned with the Jalen Johnson situation. If things like that happen to your opponent, you want the guys in charge who can take advantage of that. And that's exactly what the Chicago Bears did. So that's why, it's football, right? People get hurt, people get injured. It's all about taking those opportunities and not letting them go to waste, because otherwise we can be sitting here. And last year we might be sitting here saying you had the opportunity. CeeDee Lamb was gone. They were out their biggest weapon and you still couldn't capitalize. The Bears absolutely, they jumped on it and they capitalized today. And again, these are the little type of signs that you're looking for. Look, the Bears aren't necessarily Super Bowl contenders today. That's not what we're saying. But what we want to see is the team eventually turning into one. And I think little signs like that dictate that maybe they are.
Yeah, it represents a coaching staff that the players can believe in to take advantage of moments, and they can trust when they make a certain play call, there's a reason for it. When they're calling something this way, they can trust Dennis Allen's eyes as to why he's calling this. They don't have to have a thought in the back of their head of, why the hell is he asking me to do this? Or I don't feel like I'm like totally comfortable with this. Once you get that buy-in and trust of the players, that's when a scheme can flourish offensively and defensively. And today, I think we saw the trust between the players and the coaches grow immensely, which I'm excited about. And just this comment from Scott, because I think it's a funny moment, not to laugh at an injury, but yeah. I have no idea why Brian Schottenheimer is running CeeDee Lamb, a player who does not look like he should ever be trying to take on linebackers' tackles up the middle. Like, I mean, why is he playing running back? I don't know. That was just a bizarre choice in my mind.
Yeah, I feel like, though, in just quickly regarding that comment, I feel like you can make the same argument, though, about the Bears running DJ Moore, right? Like, it's not terribly different. I understand CeeDee Lamb is a far better receiver than DJ Moore is, but I think it's more so the concept you try to get the ball in your best player's hands as often as possible, right? And who knows, maybe that was designed to try to set something up later in the game, right? See how they were playing CeeDee Lamb out of the backfield. Who's matched up against him? Can you run him on a wheel route out of the backfield and have Tremaine Edmonds trailing CeeDee Lamb for a big play? Like, it's really easy in hindsight to sit here and say, yeah, it's dumb. But if it worked, everybody be like, Brian Schottenheimer's a genius, right? It is kind of the double-edged sword. Yes, do you threaten one of your star players getting hurt that way? Absolutely. Like, that's a calculated risk that you have to make ahead of that play. But again, if it worked, right? Like, they run a wheel route out of the backfield, he gets picked up by a linebacker, and they score an 80-yard touchdown that flips the momentum, and they win that game. Everybody's looking at Schottenheimer going, son of a bitch, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, if there was optionality on the play, I guess that makes more sense. I don't know. I see DJ Moore as a more compact body style.
Agreed.
Who can bang with linebackers, and he has a leverage advantage on a lot of them, where he just bounces off tackles like a pinball. And that's not really what I see in CeeDee Lamb. He's more lanky, skinnier. Like, I don't really want Noah Sewell tackling CeeDee Lamb in the hole, would be my thought. Where, like, DJ Moore, I feel like he can handle it.
I would argue that maybe the guy that should have been in that situation, if they wanted to get cute and creative, is George Pickens.
Yeah, I mean, I trust him more with that, just because the bulk aspect of it. But this is a Bears show, not a Cowboy show. Let's go ahead and get to our first segment here.
The baddest man.
All right, gentlemen, we're talking the baddest man on the Chicago Bears today. The guy who the Cowboys walking off the field turned around, got one last look at this guy, and went, bad man right there. Sonny, who you got for your baddest man today?
It's nice because right now I'm sitting here thinking I could go with A, I can go with B, I can go with C, I can go with D. I'm going to carry over the conversations that we had from last week. I'm going to pick Ben Johnson because of what I mentioned earlier in this show. I kind of closed out last week's post game talking about how, from what I'd seen on the field, if I didn't know that we had made a head coaching change, I don't know if I would have noticed. Today, we noticed. I think I texted in our group chat in that second quarter. I'm like, for the first time, this looks like what a Ben Johnson offense looks like. And the pressure was there. Bears were down 0-2 for the season. If we went down 0-3 at home in Soldier Field, there's a lot of Bears fans where the energy just sucked right out. All that positive energy coming into the season. If you're 0-3, you're no longer thinking about the playoffs. You're just basically thinking, is Caleb a bust? It could have gone very, very wrong. But Ben Johnson showed himself this week in preparation. As we mentioned earlier, he called himself out. He called the players out. And after that, the results showed in a positive direction. And so I've got to give all credit to Ben because I wanted more from him last week.
I agree with a lot of that, and I love the choice there. Ron, where are you going for your baddest man?
I will note, Sonny, you were 100% correct. Scott was on it in the comments a little bit ago as well, waiting for the baddest man segment. Who do you pick, right? It's nice when you have games when there's a plethora of options. I think here, man, I think it's really hard not to take Caleb Williams. Like, again, there's plenty of names that can be circled in this game, and you can be like, wow, yeah. But we got the flair of, like, this is what Caleb Williams does well. He's playing more on time, right? We saw that in the Detroit game. I think that was probably the only silver lining from that ass whooping that the Bears took a week ago in Detroit. And it continued, right? He continued to play on time this week. He continued to take what the defense was giving him. And then when the big shot play happened, I saw somebody mention it on X. I don't recall who. I'm really bad about this. I am a serial can't give credit because I just sheerly don't remember. It's not because I'm being ignorant and trying to steal the idea. But it's a valid point. I don't think I've ever seen a Bears quarterback, maybe Jay, make a throw like Caleb made on that flea flicker. I mean, that thing was as beautiful a deep ball as a Bears quarterback has ever thrown.
Most air yards of any throw in the NFL this season.
There you go, right? I mean, that thing.
On his back leg.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, off balance too. Think about that. I mean, you see why Caleb Williams was the projected number 1 overall pick heading into last year's draft, right? Like that arm talent is what people saw and were like, holy shit, this guy could be good. And yeah, was he, were some throws bad and was he off schedule? Sure, but it's the NFL. He's a second-year quarterback. He's still growing. The fact that we've seen continued improvement, we've seen him be able to air it out. I loved that early on. It was a lot of big plays. Sure, the big plays reduced as the game went on in terms of air yards and yards after catch and things like that. But then they were able to methodically move the football later in the game, right? Eat clock, take away those chunk plays. You know, with your baddest man here, Sonny, Scott says Ben is the baddest man. 19 plays, 76 yards, 9 minutes, 54 seconds off the clock was the microcosm of his coaching, ending with a 4th down touchdown. It's those little things, right, that they were then able to grind away. But shit, he had 5 passes completed in the first quarter, and 3 of them were 65, 35, and 31 yards. Hell yeah. That's a bad dude, and I hope it continues. I hope we continue to get to say that number 18 is a bad man.
Did Matt Eberflus think Caleb couldn't throw downfield? Is that what we saw happen today?
I think so.
Because Schottenheimer was saying in the post game that he brought Eberflus into the offensive meetings and had him present his knowledge on the Bears offense and their offensive players. And I mean, I don't know. It seems to, or I'm sorry, on their defensive players, but for the Cowboys defense, he would have had to share the knowledge that he has. And his knowledge was probably something, in my mind, it would have to be something along the lines of, this guy overthrew every deep ball last year. Let's not worry about that.
That's a really good point.
To an extent.
Yeah. Or at least, it's challenging him. Hey, make Caleb make those throws.
Yeah.
Do it. I dare you.
To make
it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So for my baddest man, and I think Drew Norton in the comments makes a good statement here. Underrated baddest man candidate is Dennis Allen. Definition of doing a lot with a little. After last week, he was one of our we didn't even do the segment last week, but he would have been the nicest man. I mean, it was a rough showing, but nice bounce back from him. I mean, so I've got some notes written down here. Like I go Caleb Williams, I go Ben Johnson, Odunze had a day. An underrated one, I think, is the spine of the defense. Like I'm talking the linebackers and the safeties. They prevented anything from happening in the intermediate or deep portions of the field for most of the game and kept everything in front of them within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. That's impressive. That means you're not making any busts. That means you're being very sound. But ultimately, I'm going with what I think was the thing that made the defense go today, and that's Tyrique Stevenson. I mentioned last week, when you have Jalen Johnson out there, you have one thing that you can take away and force the help away from, and you can put that help elsewhere. And I felt like that was Tyrique Stevenson today, which was huge for the Bears defense. It allowed them to really flood areas of the field while trusting that Tyrique would lock down his spot. It's a risky proposition given what we've seen from Tyrique historically, but he did it beautifully today. And I want to mention one other guy. It's not really baddest man, because I don't think anyone on the Cowboys is looking at him like, man, this guy is something. But I want to go like toughest man. And might not have been the best player in his position group even today. But I believe in giving recognition to a player who's toughing it out, who's leaving it all on the field and sacrificing for the betterment of his team. That's polarizing for a lot of Bears fans, myself included. But today, Braxton Jones put together 4 quarters of clean, quality blocking and was hardly noticeable. For an offensive lineman, that's a very high compliment when you're not getting noticed. It wasn't perfect. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to find blemishes in the tape, but I'm not trying to make a testament to what the guy can be or a belief that he can be like this Pro Bowl caliber left tackle. But I just want to celebrate a day of high quality effort from him, from a guy I believe to be a quality football player. And like a few days ago, Bears O-line coach Dan Rocher said, quote, "This guy's battling his ass off. He's trying so hard, but fundamentally he's gotten in bad spots, and that's where breakdowns are happening." And he was talking later in the game when fatigue set in, and after not getting full training camp training, and like there's still some getting up to game speed stuff happening. Today he continued to battle his ass off, but fundamentally he was much improved, and it resulted in 4 quality quarters of play. And it's time for him to stack those results and try, and hopefully we can see an adequate left tackle the rest of the season, because I'm optimistic about what I saw today from him. Of not that he can be, I think there's a lot of people when they hear me say stuff like that, I think I'm talking about him developing into this franchise left tackle. I'm just looking for a guy to be adequate for this season, because that's where the Bears are at from a need standpoint, and I think he showed that today.
100%. And to your point, Q, like, adequate's all they need from Braxton Jones when you look at the rest of that offensive line. Obviously, we're waiting to see what the whole deal is with Darnell, right? But overall, you have a vastly improved group. There's a lot of really good players that were brought in. You can cover up one guy on the offensive line. And again, all Braxton Jones needs to be is competent, because Ben Johnson, more than any other coach in football, is always going to make sure his O-line gets help as much as possible. Adequacy is all you need, and that can take this team quite far if they can get that from their left tackle.
All right, let's get to the next segment here.
The nicest man.
Starting with Ron this time. Who's your nicest man on the Bears this week?
First off, I love the puppy. The puppy always picks me up no matter what mood I'm in on this show. Man, this one's tough. This one's really, really tough. I'm really not sure.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a nice
hard
problem to have. Like,
yeah.
It's hard to pick out one guy that I'm like, oh man, that guy had a terrible game. I don't really know if anybody had a terrible game per se. There's not a lot of really nice guys this week. I'll go out on a limb here and I'll say the nicest guy was DeAndre Swift, but here's why. It's not for the reason that everybody thinks. Everybody's, oh, this guy sucks and he's so terrible and oh. I mean, that was the most beautiful running back screen that we've seen in a hot minute today. And DeAndre Swift is a huge part of that. I think he was the nicest man because he gave up his field time to let DJ Moore and to let Luther Burden and others carry the rock so that the Cowboys didn't have to deal with a true running back for the whole game in the run game. So for that reason, he didn't play the whole game. He's got nobody to spell him. They got to keep him fresh. We'll call him the nicest man because I know there's a lot of things also that people want to see from DeAndre Swift. But I think, again, Bears fans, when you understand what DeAndre Swift is as a running back, I think you look at today's game and go, that's nice. I also think back to that Los Angeles Rams game a year ago. That's the type of game that DeAndre Swift can give you. And that's the type of player that they need him to be. He's never going to be your bruising pounder between the tackles. That's just not his play style. But when you get him out in space, you get him in on screens, you let him use his speed and elusiveness, that's when you get the best version of this player. So again, because DJ Moore needed his touches in the backfield in single back, which is hilarious to see. It still looks weird. You know, Olamide Zacchaeus needed to get the football on the reverse. So did Burden. You know, they needed to get creative. And so DeAndre Swift, what a nice guy for giving away touches to his fellow teammates.
I like the way you took that, Ron. Sonny, where are you going?
You know, it's tough because, like Ron was saying, the guy I was going to say, but very hesitantly, was Swift, just for the original intention of the segment. Like, even on that screen pass, I still think he went the wrong way on a DJ Moore block, where I think he could have possibly scored on that. But, like, I don't think there's a nice player. There's moments like Swift in that particular moment. It's one of those, this is just if we get picky. I think Rome Odunze should have come down with that second touchdown, which baffles me because, you guys know I cover college football. He used to, like, hands was never an issue with Rome. And for some reason, it does kind of seem to be a little bit now that he's reached the NFL. But, it's just little moments like that. But still, Swift had, 80 all-purpose yards today. Odunze had a touchdown. He had the first touchdown of the game. They had good games, but I think they just had nice moments. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I was thinking when Ron was initially talking about it, I was like, I guess nicest man could be like, he was the nicest man on this play. Yeah. For a game like this, where you can be like, when he dropped that touchdown, he was the nicest man on that rep. Like he did a favor for him. But for me, for nicest man, I thought about going Nahshon Wright here, but I had a hard time actually, picking on a guy who's CB5 or CB6 and being forced to start on a team because there's a bunch of injuries. So ultimately, I'm going with the run defense and the defensive line and their lane integrity and ability to finish tackles because I thought they struggled for most of today with run defense. Just didn't matter. Like the Cowboys couldn't afford to keep running the football. And it goes unnoticed because of that to a large extent. And I think in the comments, one of our, I think Scott said, the entire D-line trying to stop the run. He saw Robinson jump on the back of a Dallas running back and he carried 7 yards. Yeah, that was a humorous moment. I wasn't laughing in the moment because it was still a close game, but now I can look back and laugh at it. But it maybe in a different game script, the run defense is better too because you're forced to give some more help to it. But I'd really just like, the Bears invested in these big, powerful defensive linemen, defensive ends, particularly, who are supposed to be able to dictate the run game. And we haven't really seen them be able to fully do that yet. There's a lot of money invested in Diode, Ingbo, and Montez Sweat. And I'd like to see them, at the very least, be the dominant run defenders they're supposed to be. They allowed 6 yards per carry today on 20 rush attempts without a true mobile threat at quarterback. Like a lot of times when you see a number like that, it's because you have Jaden Daniels at quarterback, or you have even Caleb Williams, you got someone who's a threat that takes a defender out of the play. Cowboys don't really have that, and they got what they wanted on the ground for much of the game. And I'm not sure how to fix it other than the Bears defensive linemen playing better, because I believe they have the talent and the ability to do better in that department.
An honorable mention goes to whoever was covering Jake Ferguson today. He just caught the ball every single time.
I think Part of that might have just been Dennis Allen saying, let him catch
Yeah,
the football
no,
as much as he wants.
tongue in
He's
cheek.
not going to break a single tackle, and he'll go down as soon as you hit him. Just if you let him break a tackle on you, you're cut. Like that is the type of thing that's happening.
It's
You
just
will
notable
lose
because
reps.
I literally picked him up this morning to start at tight end for me in my fantasy league. So I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, is that him again? Is that 87 again? Just constantly. But yeah, no, you're exactly right. I think Ferguson was probably like the third or fourth option every single time. It was just kind of a last resort for Dak, and it just always was there. But 13 catches for 82 yards, and not a single one of those catches or yards hurt you.
Well said.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to our final segment here.
Keys to victory.
Every single week, you can find our keys to victory that we do. One, you can find them on our game preview podcast that we do where we actually formulate them. And then two, you can go over to ontapsportsnet.com and find the article where they're written up a little more in detail, a little more research on top of that, because, a lot of times on the podcast, we're just giving them on the fly. Then afterwards, I'll go in and look up some numbers that kind of support it or maybe push back a little bit against it, even if it merits it. 'Cause, I don't just want to be confirmation bias over here, but we'll always give some good discussion there. And then on the post-game show, we like to review those keys to victory and say, did the Bears accomplish these things? And if so, were we right about them making sense as keys? Our first one was that the Bears need to establish the run early and often. And this was against the Cowboys defense that had allowed the 10th most rushing yards. But that's a little deceiving because in week 1 against the Eagles, it looked like a bottom 10 run defense because a lot of teams do against the Eagles. But against the Giants in week 2, they looked like a top 10 run defense. But at the same time, a lot of teams look really good against the Giants. So, I feel like you had two extremes, and they're probably just land somewhere in the lower third of the league in run defense. But, the numbers didn't really give you a strong inkling the more you dove into them. But, Ron, I'm going to kick this one to you because this was your key to the game. How do you think the Bears did at this one?
Yeah, Q, I feel very kind of middle of the road on this one. I think that when you look at the stats, right, 29 total attempts as a team, 87 total yards. I think you would largely call that a disappointment, right? Ideally, you want to see 100 to probably 120 as a team. Best case scenario, right? You're pushing 150, maybe even 160. That's usually a good day offensively. But I think what this successfully did today, and this is kind of why I'm not totally sour on this note, is you threw a bunch of different looks on tape that now every single team in the NFL has to respect. And I think that's only going to help the running ability of this team going forward, right? You look at the fact that, Caleb Williams had a designed run in there besides just, scrambling and trying to take off and make things happen if things broke down. You had the Luther Bird and end around to pick up a key first down on that drive. You had DJ Moore taking carries, not only out of the backfield, but also in other various forms as well. And of course, Zacchaeus had the big 12-yard scamper on the end around as well. You have forced teams to respect motion, to respect whether it's an orbit motion, whether it's a jet motion, whatever you want. You have put on tape and showed every team in the league, we can run the football with, let me count really quick. 1, 2, 3, 6 players. We don't need just one running back or 2 running backs to successfully run the football. They took care of business today with 6 guys touching the football. And again, it helps when you got Caleb playing on time. We talked about in the offseason that this team was probably going to throw the football a lot more because of the weapons on the team and where the strengths of the offense lied. They did that. They took care of business. And they did just enough in the run game to force the Cowboys to respect it. And I think late in the game is when we really saw the run step up, especially in the third quarter on that long drive.
19 plays.
Just grinding. It wasn't big yardage, but it was just enough to get the job done. And I'll tell you what, a rushing offense, obviously you would like to see the numbers improved. But I think when you look back and you say, how did they dictate the flow of the game? I thought they did a very good job. So I'm not totally sour on this note. I think I would like to see those rushing totals increase as we move through the season, right? Ben Johnson's offenses in Detroit were were very successful with a heavy run game and what that did to open up the pass. But I think the way they did it in the sense of moving different pieces into different places, that to me was successful because you put so many different looks on tape now that every single team in the league now has to respect.
That's such a strong point, Ron. Like you just think about it from a linebacker perspective, right? This is your run lane, but if it's a pass, your man coverage on DeAndre Swift.
Yep.
But if you got DJ Moore doing the jet motion, your eyes can't be on the run lane and on DeAndre Swift at the same time.
Bingo.
And now you're suddenly in that conflict, and that's where this offense thrives, where Ben Johnson thrives.
And in addition to, and this is probably a more underrated piece of that, let's say hypothetically speaking, the Chicago Bears are running inside zone right. Nothing spectacular. But you're comboing that with DJ Moore or Luther Burden or somebody who's maybe in the slot, right? Maybe they're your right side slot receiver coming across the formation. And maybe you're snapping the ball as soon as he gets to the tackle. Now, just because they've put it on paper that they'll hand the ball to the receiver on the jet or on an orbit, they'll pitch it out to him or whatever it is, that half a step that the linebacker might take the wrong direction makes a zone block for an offensive lineman climbing to the second level that much easier from an ankle standpoint. So again, right, we talk about it's a game of inches. It really is a game of inches. And the deception and getting teams to go one way when you're going the other, that is incredibly key because you can create so many small advantages, and those small advantages will compound into a major advantage on a play that could be game-breaking and could help you win a football game when it's all said and done.
That's the difference between a Darnell Wright or a Jonah Jackson bending at the waist to dive in front of a linebacker versus getting them clean and finishing them, like that half step. But
Bingo.
Let's get on to this second one, and let's see what it is here. Our second key of the game was don't let Dallas steal momentum with explosive plays. Sonny, how do you think the Bears did at this one?
I think we excelled in that. I mean, that was worrisome on their first drive, as Ron mentioned earlier. And what Tyrique Stevenson essentially did was not just take the ball, but he stole that momentum with that play. And so I think, not just that play. We just referenced that 19-play drive. It's a third quarter. Dallas has got a good offense. They're not out of that game yet. And what the Bears offense did, they ran the ball 11 straight times. I believe they milked 11 minutes off that clock. And you're talking about valuable minutes that Dallas absolutely could have used to try to score. And then what happens? They capitalize on fourth down with the 4-yard touchdown. I think, any opportunity that Dallas might have had to get momentum, or in the beginning of the game, they were building momentum. But even the opportunities that they might have gotten in the third quarter were just taken away. First by the Bears defense at the beginning of the game, and in the third quarter by the Bears offense, running the ball. These are all rushes, 11 times in a row, 0, 2, 7, 4, 2, 4, 7, 5, 4, 2, 8-yard gains. Just chipping away a little bit, keeping that Dallas defense on the field, tiring them out, and most importantly, not giving Dak and that offense a chance to come back and score, and all of a sudden making it a one-score game, and all of a sudden having the rest of us a little bit on edge to see what happens.
Yeah, no, and that 19-play drive it's hilarious to me when you saw it. Like, I don't know if you guys saw this after the game. DJ Moore had a comment like it was torture. It's not exactly fun to be doing that unless you're the lineman, right? The linemen enjoy that, but like everyone else in the field is kind of like, but it's what leads to a win. And that's kind of what we were saying about the buy-in part. Like, if you win, you can ask your guys more of them in that way. And that's huge. And that I agree. I think they executed this key very well today, keeping everything on defense in front of them. And I think that's a great point from you, Sonny, as well on offense, how they can prevent Dallas from getting the explosives by just keeping them off the field like they did for basically the entire third quarter. It's really hard for an offense to sit there cold for that long and then come back out and be explosive. You know, they're not warm. They're not warmed up. Their muscles have tightened up. And I mean, I don't know, it's warm out, so it's not like the cold when that's happening, but it still does impact it. Now, our third key to the game was to execute in the trenches with grit. And I mean, I think this one largely in spades. A few penalties. Still, I think they had 6 penalties on the day. I'm not sure what the count was, O-line versus defense versus elsewhere. But that's a significant improvement from last week. And the very few pre-snap. I don't think there were any pre-snap penalties in this game for the offense, which is that's a giant improvement from what we saw the last 2 weeks, and something that was at the heart of this one. The execute part was at the heart of that, and the grit part was short yardage ability. And the grit part, that's what we saw on the 19-play drive. We saw them find ways to just get the job done. You know, it doesn't matter how you do it, you just do it. And like Darnell Wright was out there playing with one arm and just finding ways to get it done. I do think part of that 19-play drive was they couldn't throw because they didn't know if Darnell Wright could actually block anybody in pass pro, but they knew he could get one arm on someone and push. So I do think that was part of what led to the strategy there. But they executed, they showed grit, they showed want to, and that's exactly what I wanted to see.
And also, Q, you were talking about grit and that offensive line. Caleb Williams had spectacular numbers today. And you know what other number jumps out at you? 0 sacks.
Goose egg.
You're talking about grit. These guys were ready. And, in some sort of way, maybe collectively they could have been the baddest men because of their, protection. Caleb was able to make the plays he did. Ben Johnson was able to draw up the plays that he wanted to do. And so, give credit to them. So in a way, I do think, this was a success.
Hell yeah, brother.
What a time to be alive, gentlemen. A quality Bears O-line game. What a time to be alive. Now, we did have a bonus key here that didn't really come into play, but we thought it definitely could have. And that was don't let Brendan Aubrey get comfortable. So we thought this was going to be a close one-score game, most likely, in the fourth quarter. And he's a kicker who has shown the ability to hit 65-yard field goals. So his familiarity with the winds could have played a factor. I mean, they didn't really achieve this in the first half, but, it didn't matter. So, and this one's it's tough, too, because it's would you rather go have a touchdown than the 40-yard field goal? But, obviously, you just not rather give up the points, but it was just to keep him on the edge of his range, around midfield. And they didn't do it great, but they won the game by 4 scores. It just didn't matter.
It's just how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. But so ultimately, I mean, I think in some ways they executed all of these. They executed at least 2 or 3 in my mind. I give them a 2.5 out of 3. I mean, the keys to the game, I think, were pretty on the money, and they got them done.
Hell yeah. You love to see it when the game plan that Bears on tap executes on the field.
All right. So do you gentlemen have any final thoughts here? I mean, I guess I'll throw out Caleb got a game ball. Tremaine got a game ball. Tremaine had 14 tackles, 2 interceptions, and he really was flying around pretty well today. And then Ben Johnson didn't smile at all in his press conference, which was fun. And he gave all the credit for the explosive plays to his coaching staff, who found the vulnerabilities in Dallas's tape. I really like to see that as a big I'm a big believer in coaches who push credit to their staff and try to build, to push their staff to grow into different roles of different teams and to get better. And that's how that felt to me. But do you guys have any thoughts from the pressers, from the game, anything you want to put out there?
I just want to mention that the Green Bay Packers lost to the Cleveland Browns today. And, the Bears look very impressive today against the Dallas Cowboys. And next week they play the Raiders. And after the Raiders, they play the Commanders. And then following the Commanders, they play the Saints. I'm not saying that the division is not over, but I might be hinting that the division race may not necessarily be over. If Green Bay can lose to Cleveland, they can lose to anybody.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of what I put out there when they made the trade. Now, don't get me wrong, I still think Green Bay is really good and going to be really good. but like I don't think they're as much of the juggernaut as it was made out to be when they made that trade.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think too, just maybe this is just a more football wide note because we got a very comfortable Bears win. When's the last time we had a comfortable Bears win? Holy shit, we got to go back probably to that game in London last year. It feels like it's been forever. I feel like a different human being since that game. But there was a lot of good bangers around the league on Sunday. Can we talk about how crazy special teams was today? 3 blocked field goals like in the last 5 minutes of multiple games. Green Bay had 1 blocked against Cleveland that led to Cleveland being able to walk off with a field goal. Tampa Bay had 1 blocked that gave the Jets the lead late, but forced Baker to pull another one out of his ass and lead them down the field to go 3-0. And then you had the Eagles blocking a Rams kick, which would have been the game winner to seal that victory in what was a rematch of the playoffs a season ago. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't think special teams are important, you are fucking lying to yourself. That's my final thought.
Ron, I lost 2 different bets on 2 of those games today.
Oh, see?
Heartbreaking.
Oh,
Heartbreaking.
Oh no.
Oh, man. Sorry to
the Eagles Rams one. Block the field goal, fine. Don't return for a touchdown. Like that, I was like pulling my hair out. Like, no, that man is 350 pounds. You can't let him run it back.
That was a bad beat for multiple people, and I bet you there are a lot of people that are going to be rejoicing about the Eagles defense scoring a touchdown for fantasy this week.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah. Now, a couple thoughts that I want to get out there from Caleb's presser. I thought it was funny that in the week of practice, he told Luther Burden, "You won't outrun me. Just go full speed out the gate." Because, I mean, I just love to hear that from your quarterback. Second, I love how he gave kudos to the offensive line for his sack avoidance. He said game scripts helps, but the O-line made it easy for him. Always love giving credit to the big guys up front. And then it was interesting that he specifically called out the work ethic and growth from Luther Burden in his presser. Which I couldn't tell what the question was. It might have been specific to Luther, but like I thought that was notable.
I think it's notable. Sorry, Sonny.
No,
I think it's notable with Luther as well because I still think back to the 1920 football drive when they drafted Luther and Ben gets on the phone. Coach said we're getting a dog. That's who we're getting, right? You know, I think there was a lot of maybe not character questions, but maybe effort questions with Burden coming out of school. And maybe that's why he fell to the second round where he did.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben Johnson, more than anybody, right, is a guy that's going to motivate. Obviously, Antoine Randall is a phenomenal receivers coach as well. I think you could tell those two have really held Luther Burden to a high standard, and that's part of the reason you've seen this improvement from the young receiver. And that's going to be huge if this Bears offense is going to be successful because now you have – 6 tangible weapons, 7 tangible weapons on that offense that you can turn to at any given time. That's humongous, especially with a guy like Luther Burden in your back pocket in terms of the talent. And shit, you saw it today, right? Fuck it. Luther's down there somewhere. I hope we get to say that multiple times this season because that's really what it felt like on the flea flicker touchdown.
I mean, it's one of those where, you know, he should have been mentioned as a potential baddest man contender too. I think I counted 123 all-purpose yards today. You know, you're talking about a coming out party. You know, last week, again, Q, I keep referencing last week's postgame, but we're wondering where Colston was, where Luther Burden was. And Ben Johnson said that he wanted to get those guys more involved this week, and he did. And you kind of saw glimpses of what makes Luther such an intriguing weapon and have such potential in a Ben Johnson offense.
Yeah. No, it's exciting to see Luther get his number called and execute on it. Like first career NFL catch is what, a 70-yard touchdown. Like that's awesome. That's absolutely sick. Or not first career. I'm sorry. He did have 1 or 2 already, but one of his first few. That's really cool.
Also, 3 for 3 targets, 3 catches for Burden too. I think that's a key stat as well. Wasn't targeted a ton, but he made the most of his opportunities.
Yeah. Now, I want to end the show with if you haven't seen it yet, go over to the Bears on Tap Twitter page. It's been tweeted over there. The video of after giving the game balls, Ben Johnson breaking down everybody. And I want to read through what he said. I'm not going to shout it the way he did because I feel like that would just be really awkward and cringy on a mic. But the breakdown was good, better, best, never let it rest until your good gets better and your better gets best. Bears on 3, 1, 2, 3 Bears. And I love this.
I was ready to
this
run
statement.
through a wall.
Like,
it was amazing.
It fits in with so much of what we said, right? Stack good practices, stack good performances, then you stack wins. It all gets easier to work hard as a player, to push players as a coach, and to raise the expectations in the building coming off a win. And now the Bears get to take this feeling into the week, invest in their work, make today's good, tomorrow's better, and find a way to win another football game in Las Vegas. And, you know, as Bears fans, how many times is it the last few years we're going into the week feeling like shit because of a game? And, you know, I mean, it's we dissect our lives from it as much as we can and our emotions from it and protect ourselves from it. But like, it still does affect you in certain ways here and there. And so this isn't just for players either in my mind. Like to me, I read this, I'm like this, like I'm going to go into tomorrow and be better because I'm going to feel good. That doesn't mean like, maybe that means I have an unhealthy relationship with the Bears. That's probably really what this means, but we are where we are. And I'm excited to go into the week with a win, an early season win, feeling good about the amount of time I'm spending on this team, this content, and enjoying being a fan of this team because it's not something we get every week. It's not something we get every year. And recently it's been in low supply. So hopefully by this time next week, we're talking about a winning streak going into the bye. Gentlemen, why don't we get out of here with a good old-fashioned bear down?
Bear down, gents.
Bear down, baby.
Bear down.